Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. JACALYN. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. Jacqueline at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. I'm Dr. JACALYN KERBECK, and we're so excited to continue bringing you new programming. This show is really something special because if we're lucky, we get to age. And so many people dread getting older and all of the things that comes with that. But the purpose of this show is to embrace the aging process, to age gracefully and with humor. What about that? I'm so excited to share this platform, this particular program with Kathy Fulton. In addition to her being a co-host of this show, she's also a co-host of our next show, What's Trending. She is one of our expert presenters on our Talking Heads platform, and she has become a certified elevated listener, which means she listens without judging, without providing a solution, without interrupting, and without stage hogging. And she's also a panelist on our program, A Woman's Prerogative. And believe it or not, she has an entire life when she's not on this platform. Let's welcome her to the show, and then we'll welcome our guest for today. Welcome, Kathy Fulton.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. We're both in pink. How about that?
I know. I think we got the memo, right?
We did. We got the memo. So, Kathy, for people who are joining us for the first time, whether it's on the radio or the television, I'm going to spotlight you. And if you can share, what are you doing when you're not here? And why was it important for you to be a part of this particular show?
Well, when I'm not uh, working on or co-hosting some show with you, um, I run a interior design business that I have had for 22 years, and I also have a home care agency for the elderly. The impetus for me to start that was all because of my mom, who had two strokes back to back. And so then one thing led to another. And I decided, you know what? I know what people need in terms of taking care of the elderly. And so I'm going to start my own agency. So those are just a couple of things that I do. And also, my 91-year-old mom lives with me, and she has since 2014. So I take care of her every single day. So we're pretty much joined at the hip. So that's all I do. That's it.
And you're still smiling. It's so important.
Yeah,
And of
not
course, as
much.
we as we age, there's no handbook that tells you that what body part used to be here is now going to be over there, and things just start to fall apart. And we have to find some kind of humor in it. And that's why I love this graphic behind us, because it's almost like as you age, you can age gracefully and share that with another person, or just by yourself, to look at the next chapter of your life and how can you look at it from a different perspective. And I think that's what the show is all about.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And just taking care of my mom all these years and realizing, I mean, hey, this train is coming right at me. I mean, if I'm lucky enough to age or continue aging, I, y- I take a good look at this every single day, and it's very attention catching, and how I want to prepare and how I'm trying to position myself and make plans. Because when you don't think about this, it sneaks up on you. Because in my life, the years, they have just clicked by very, very quickly, and I don't want to be left holding the bag going, okay, what now? So I think that this show is going to help so many people, because I think you and I both are very big on, let's be informative. Let's help people. Let's give them some information that they probably don't know or they need a reminder about. And so that's one reason, one of the many why I'm just really excited to be on the show and to be making all these connections to get the word out.
Absolutely. And we have a special guest backstage. And if you could just talk a little bit about the connection, how you two were brought together, and just allude to the show that we did before.
Yeah, so our very first guest was Hugh Reese, excuse me, with dwelling assured dwelling, and so their marketing department connected me with Ryan, and it's just kind of one thing led to another, and here we are. And he's got um, great perspective, great ideas, and some a really excellent tool for home monitoring that I think people will be very intrigued to learn about.
Outstanding. So, without further ado, let us welcome our guest. He is the founder of Minute Women Home Care, and he's going to share some new information, at least for our audience. I'm really excited about this. So, let's welcome Ryan to the show. Hi, Ryan.
Hey,
Hi,
how's it
Ryan.
going? Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. And if you can just share with our audience, where are you joining us from today?
I'm right outside of Boston, Massachusetts. So Minute Women is located in Lexington, which is known for their historic background in the Revolutionary War. So that's my neck of the woods.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you, and nice to see that smile on your face. That's what we're all about here today, how to age gracefully with humor. So, what does the aging process, what does it mean to you in terms of how you've incorporated it into your professional life?
Well, I mean, like Kathy was mentioning, I think a lot of people that get involved in senior care have a personal connection to it, and my connection was my mom. I was out in Denver, Colorado, drinking beer and snowboarding and having a great time, and then I got a call that my mom had stage 4 cancer, and that basically was when you kind of drink from the fire hose of information about what is what's going on with cancer, what is 24-hour home care, what is hospice, what are all these options that we have, and trying to do all of that while trying to comprehend that, 5 days ago your mom was playing golf and 4 months from now she's likely going to be dead. And so, that's how I got into home care, and that's how a lot of families get introduced to home care, unfortunately, is when a crisis occurs, and then all of a sudden they have to, basically take a accelerated class on what is senior care and how do you care for loved ones, and that process. So that's how I got involved in this. And then just a slight correction, I'm not the founder of Minute Women. What ended up happening was my aunt was actually the founder of Minute Women. She started it in 1969, and then after this obviously horrible situation with my mom after she passed away, her and I got talking about, buying the company from her, and then I took it over, and um, excuse me, and we've been able to flourish, and it's been, the kind of last gift my mom could ever have given me, because I didn't know what I was going to do with my life. And then through that terrible situation I was able to find a career, and I'm able to help people, and that's a great thing. I get paid to help people and provide peace of mind to adult children and to seniors that are worried about what they're going to do with their parents.
Thank you so much for clarifying that, and I'm really sorry to hear about your mom and to get information like that. It's that's how it happens, isn't it? Everything's fine, and then all of a sudden you get that call, and you're sort of, what am I supposed to do now? Kathy, you also alluded to that, having the plans in advance. What do you think are some of the reasons that people don't have any type of long-term or contingency plan for that next chapter of their life?
I mean, I think people in a more obtuse way are more than happy to talk about death because we all know it's going to happen. But then when it comes to being specific about who is going to pass away, that is a very difficult conversation to have. And there are a lot of people that don't want to face that fact, or maybe in the family dynamics, it's taboo to talk about. And of course, you also have family dynamics. I'm an only child. So, like, my parents were like, hey, if it's not you, it's nobody. But if you have multiple siblings, there can be conflict there. There can be issues there. And sometimes people say, hey, listen, it's not worth the battle to have these conversations and set up these plans because it's going to get contentious and I just want to get along with everybody. So they kick the can down the road. And eventually you run out of road. And then that's when the crisis occurs. And that's when everybody's scrambling to figure things out. So I think it's one of those things where it's an uncomfortable conversation, and why it's uncomfortable might be a couple different reasons, but at the end of the day, it's just something that people aren't ready to face, and it's a very difficult thing to face. It's not easy.
Absolutely. And I feel like information is power, knowledge is power, because when you have that, it gives you a certain sense of comfort and peace. Kathy, what are your thoughts?
Well, yeah, absolutely. Um, because what I run into a lot, Ryan and Dr. Jacqueline, in my agency is um, it's it's very much just like you described, Ryan. I'll get a phone call, say on a Tuesday, and they need care immediately, like tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. And I'm like, okay. And a lot of times I can pull a rabbit out of a hat and resolve the situation. But I mean, I guess maybe it's because I've been doing it so long, but I also approach life from a different perspective. Let's talk about the elephant in the room. Let's just get it all out. Let's figure out how we're going to approach this situation, because more often than not, it's not if, it's when. And so, like for my mom, with my mom, for example, one day, I mean, she came to visit me from Texas, and I live in Virginia, and we were having a great time together. We had been to Charleston to celebrate her 80th birthday, and on the way home, it was kind of like when a radio starts, there's like all the static, and her words were not connecting, and she was not making any sense. And it's like, you got to be kidding me. What is going on? And so I immediately had to step up to the plate. And she didn't want anyone to live with her, that outside of the family. um but it was dragging all of this out of her. I mean, it is, if I would have known more information, like where's your power of attorney, where, I mean, let's talk about all these really important things that are critical in moving your life forward while you're not in a very powerful position to move your life forward. So I'm just a big proponent of, let's just talk about it. Let's just have a conversation. So, because I always told her, I want to do what you want, but help me get you there. Help me get you there, because I don't want to make all the decisions for you in your life. So I mean, that's just my approach, and that's my point of view.
And your
Thank
point is absolutely right. If you start at the end, then you can work your way backwards in figuring out how you get there, right? If you don't have an end goal, then you really can't make a plan on things. And like you said, there's just a simple 80-20 rule that if you do some power of attorneys, if you go over to fivewishes.org and you pay them the $5 donation, you get a great document that steps you through how to have these conversations with your loved ones. And if you are able to do just that, that is going to make life so much easier when that crisis occurs. So I couldn't agree with you more on that point.
Yeah.
Ryan, thank you so much. While we have you on Spotlight, can you share with our audience what type of services and care do you provide with your organization?
So, I mean, private home care is pretty standard. I mean, there's certainly variances, but most private home cares, including Minute Women, we offer basically two standard services. One is hourly home care, and the other one is live-in home care. So it's kind of self-explanatory. Hourly home care is when a caregiver comes into the home for a predetermined amount of time. Maybe it's 8 hours, 12 hours, and you're paying for that person on an hourly basis. While live-in is when somebody actually comes in and lives with a senior. And usually that is either a 4-3 split to break up the week, or the more expensive option is one person for 7 days. And we've been finding that live-ins have become increasingly popular as COVID has taken over and people really are moving towards a live-in rather than hourly care.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Now, one concern that people have shared with me over time about having someone live with them is it is it safe? Are their valuables safe? Are they going to be feeling that they're in good hands? And obviously, this is the case with your organization, but if you could elaborate.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the kind of running joke I have when I meet with referral sources, right? Nobody ever comes in and says they're a mediocre home care company. They're always the greatest. And there is a lot of worry to have when you have essentially a stranger coming in the home and caring for somebody. The seniors are the second most vulnerable population behind children. And so we have had a lot of issues and I mean in the general area of people being taken advantage of, where the town over from Lexington, Belmont, the council on aging, the person that ran the council on aging ended up being arrested for taking advantage of a senior, and it was a horrible situation. So what I'm getting to is that what you need to find out with your home care company is what kind of oversight somebody has. Like, we have a dedicated field supervisor that goes out regularly, and by regularly, once a week, every 2 weeks, maybe at the latest every month, and does spot checks and just unannounced shows up and says what's going on in the house. Because if you show up every Wednesday, everything's going to be working perfectly on Wednesday, and then the other 7 days of the week is really what's going on. So you have to do those unannounced spot checks to make sure you're holding the caregivers accountable, because you don't want a good caregiver to turn into a bad caregiver because they get lackadaisical and because there's no oversight. With specifically to valuables, my general rule of thumb, and when I took over Minute Women, we actually did two services. We did house cleaning as a completely separate company, and then we did home care as a second company. And it doesn't matter what the service is, whether it's home care, whether it's plumbing, whether it's HVAC or house cleaning. If you have somebody coming into your home that you don't know well enough, you definitely want to keep your valuables in a locked safe or out of the home. You're The TV isn't the issue of getting stolen. The big screen TV is going to be noticed within an hour of it being stolen. The issue is the rings, the diamonds, the earrings, the coins. Those are the items that you're not going to notice are missing for likely weeks, if not months later. And by that time, there's no way to prove who did it. There's no real recourse of being able to get compensated for that. And even if I say, hey, listen, it might have been me, let's go through the insurance is going to say, hey, there's no proof there. And so sometimes when we've had that issue, we'll just pay out of pocket for any damages, or if something is lost or assumed stolen. And sometimes it pops back up. But as a general rule, you really want to take those small items, whether they're valuable or whether they're sentimental, and you want to keep them in an area that is locked and away. And then that way, you are going to notice the safe is missing far sooner than you're going to notice the earring is missing. And then if you have somebody with dementia that hides things and you know that could be a problem, well, then take the real diamond earrings and go buy costume jewelry and replace it with the costume jewelry. They're likely not going to know the difference, and then that way, those valuables and those heirlooms are kept safe.
Wow, what a great suggestion. I love that. It's spot on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And the only thing that I would add, Ryan, is probably l- I, like you, we've had caregivers that have worked for us since we started. At least that is with me. And I mean, quite frankly, I start out by putting the fear of God in them. It's like, okay, look, I've run the background check. I know you're good to go. But sometimes people make mistakes. And but let me just warn you, don't even think about making a mistake with any of my clients, because I will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. And for whatever reason, maybe they think I'm crazy or they really take me seriously. But I mean, knock on wood, not, today I'll get a call, but knock on wood, I haven't had any problems. But I mean, things happen. So, but I agree with your process. That's
Yeah, and
the
just
best way.
one tip I would say is put everything on a credit card. Don't use cash. For the love of God, don't use cash. And the reason that is, listen, we've had issues where the caregiver says they were given a 20 to go buy something, and the client says
Right.
they were given 100. But if you use a credit card or a debit card, at least if there's fraudulent activity, one, you're going to know about it nearly immediately, and two, you're going to be able to get reimbursed by the credit card company for the fraudulent activity. And then we're obviously going to be able to, like Kathy said, prosecute somebody, because it's you have the proof there. Like somebody, you have the paper trail, you have the breadcrumbs that show what happened, versus if cash goes missing, that's very difficult to that's a very sticky situation to get into. So I would really recommend people listening to really swap over to a credit card for their loved ones, and that way there's a lot less of a chance of theft happening.
Thank
Agree.
you. Yeah, that's great. Ryan, I'm also wondering, for people watching or listening, when should we contact you? So, is it a certain age? Is it something happened like you shared with your mom? When's the best time to actually start this process?
Yeah, I mean, things have changed, and one of the things I kind of wanted to make an addendum to of what I said was earlier, is that I maybe I made it sound like it's the family's fault that they don't start earlier, and that's not necessarily the case in home care. Right now in home care, we're dealing, and I don't know if Kathy is dealing with this in her neck of the woods, but at least in the Boston area, 2 years ago, before the pandemic, we were doing, able to do 3 4 hour shifts, a block of time for 3 hours. That was considered a low amount of time. But now with the pandemic, staffing issues, everybody's pulling from the same pool of caregivers in the area, not just home care, but VNAs, nursing homes, assisted livings, hospice companies, even some hospitals are trying to get these caregivers, and that is putting a big strain on things. And like supply and demand, all of a sudden those hours are now, like, a minimum shift is like 6 to 8 hours now, because caregivers know if they wait another day, they're going to get a call from another agency offering them a 12 or 10, 12, 16-hour shift. Um, so to answer your question, families are in a difficult situation, because we used to say, hey, let's start small and then work your way up. And now it is more or less like you really have to be willing to get 8 hours of care 2 to 3 times a week, to have consistency of a caregiver. So certainly, once you start seeing that falls are occurring, or somebody's getting unstable, or they're starting to have memory issues, that's obviously the red flags of you need to start scrambling to put a plan in place. Like, it's happening, and it's going to only get worse, unfortunately. But generally, people are giving us a call now, which kind of brought Kathy and I together with the WellAware Care thing. Um, because the cost of care is getting very expensive, and the minimum hours are getting so high that you really need to dedicate yourself to knowing that you're going to be getting 24 to 40 hours a week of care just to start out. And that's a difficult situation for family members, because not everybody needs 30 hours of care. They just need 3 hours 3 times a week to get mom ready for the day, showered, and do some laundry, and then that's all that's needed. So it's becoming difficult, and it's not a great answer. It's not the perfect answer. There's no like line in the sand for me, but it's really when you start feeling overwhelmed as the family caregiver that you can't take this on anymore, and you are being run thin, and you're starting to burn out, that's certainly another sign to say, hey, listen, we need to get some reinforcements in here, whether that's other family members, whether that's paid help through Minute Women or what Kathy does. Those are kind of the red flags you should be looking for.
Thank you.
Ryan, oh, excuse me. Go ahead. I didn't mean to talk over you.
Oh, that's okay. So a couple of things come to mind, and they're two separate things. So I'll just start with one, then we'll go to Kathy. So my question is, what about when the individual, him or herself, is combative and doesn't want to follow what it is that the other family members are suggesting? Do you have some way to liaise in there, or your organization, to help the individual realize this is the best choice?
Yeah, I mean, that's really just having a conversation with somebody and understanding why they're resisting having somebody in the home. It's usually a privacy issue, or it's usually I just don't want to be, I still think I'm independent and I don't need this type of help. And it's really having that conversation. I mean, family members sometimes have to be the quote unquote bad guy to get this done, but at the same time we can sometimes have those conversations, and we've been successful sometimes. But if a caregiver shows up to the house and the person doesn't open the door and let them in, I mean, we can't kick in the door to provide care, right? We can't force anybody to get care. So it can be very difficult when somebody is being resistant to having any type of help. And I say that, knowing full well I might be a curmudgeon when I get older, and I don't want to have help or whatever. But it's a difficult scenario to be in, and there's no magic bullet on that one. It's just really sitting down, having a conversation with somebody, and trying to start a little smaller maybe and then work your way up. But it's there's no perfect answer. I don't know, Kathy, maybe you can advise me on what works for you, because I could use all the help in the world.
Well, I mean, to just go back to what you were talking about as to why they kind of like the minimum hours have increased in your area. The same thing is happening here in Virginia, and I've had to increase it. It's twofold for what you've said, but also the price of gas has it's just outrageous, as we know, and people cannot afford to go for 2 and 3 hours at a time. It's just not gonna happen. And, my favorite ones are, "Okay, could we schedule you to come in and get mom out of bed at 8 and then leave at 9 and then come back at 12, fix her lunch, leave at 1, and then come in for, a bed tuck in at, maybe 8." It's like, sure, everybody wants to do that, right? I mean, those are the tough ones, and so I, like you, I just had to go to at least 8 hours. Otherwise, it just all the wheels fall off the bus. But then to your question about, do I do anything differently? It's for me, it's just you never know what is going to work. Sometimes, and I'll give a personal example with my mom. Sometimes and I've seen this in other situations. There is so much history there that it's hard for her to always receive care and or guidance and direction as to really compliance issues, meaning, please take your medication. And she'll stand there and argue with me, even though we've had the same medications going on for however many years now. The walker, the wheelchair, we must use this. We don't want to break a hip. But I could bring in someone that's going to take care of her on the weekend. And oh, sure, no problem. Uh, Absolutely. Yeah, she's just delightful, and I'm like, "Who are you, and what did you do with my mother?" So it's just you never know, but I've also experienced, in my agency where caregivers will show up and that person is not having any part of it, nothing, and, won't open the door. I mean, it's horrible because those are the ones that probably really do need the care, and so, but I think, like we were talking earlier and having previous conversations about the fall detection. I mean, I think that for people that are absolutely not going to have any of it, it would be so great for them to have that monitoring system in place and the cost is minimal. I mean, you're never going to get a caregiver in there for that amount of money per month. But you're the expert on that. Can you speak to the technology?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm working, and I'm a part owner of a company called WellAware Care, and basically what it does is it's fall detection and remote monitoring. And so what we're all accustomed to is PERS, right? Which is the personal emergency response system, which is, you know, the help I've fallen and I can't get up buttons. And so what brought me to WellAware Care and technology in general, and you know, WellAware Care I think is going to be great, but in more broad sense, I think technology is going to be coming in and providing some of the help and the safety net that home care is unable to do or families are unable to do. What we're seeing is, as Kathy was mentioning, we're talking about as the cost of care is rising. Like right now in Boston area, you're talking it's $40 an hour for home care, and you're talking like an 8-hour minimum. So it gets expensive very quickly. And there are families that either can't afford that, or they're unwilling to pay for that, or maybe they don't need that amount of care yet. And so that's where I think technology is going to fill that gap. It's going to be not this, it's never going to replace one-on-one hands-on care. There's nothing that can do that unless we develop those robots, but it is at least a safety net for families to have a bit of peace of mind to know that their loved one is safe. And if they do have an issue, then they can respond to that immediately. And so what WellAware Care does that's a little bit different than the PERS, this certainly happens with people with dementia, but it can happen with seniors in general, is that they either forget to wear it, they don't want to wear it, they forget to press the button, or they hang it up when they go into the shower and then they fall in the shower or whatever it might be. WellAware Care are fall detectors that don't use a camera. They use radio waves. They're plugged into the wall and they're placed on the wall, and they use radio waves to determine if a fall has occurred. And that way it's very, you know, it's non-invasive. There's no cameras, there's no buttons to press, and there's no interaction on behalf of the senior. And so when a fall occurs, it gives that senior up to 90 seconds to recover on their own from their fall, get back up. And if they don't, then it sends out a text message, an automated phone call, and an automated email to an unlimited amount of contacts to let them know that a fall has occurred. Because one of the things that happens with a lot of seniors is that they end up being stranded on the floor for so long. The fall didn't cause any damage. It's the being stranded on the ground for 6 hours, or in some cases days. And when I say days, that's not a scare tactic. Like I was visiting my dad down in Florida 2 months ago, and he was telling me his neighbor was on the ground for 3 days before anybody realized they had fallen. And so it happens far more often than you realize. And that is what brings somebody to the emergency room, because they've soiled themselves, they're dehydrated, they're in bad shape, and now you're in the emergency room and your baseline may change. Versus if somebody gets over to you within a few minutes of the fall happening, you might only just need to get back up in your chair and you're good to go, and you can go back to, you know, eating a PB&J and watching whatever TV program you were watching. So I think that technology in a whole, as people become more remote, as family members live further away from their parents, is going to become more and more important to be able to remotely monitor seniors, as well as have an eye on what's going on in the home. And that's where I think technology is certainly going, because the cost of care is going up so much. There's not enough caregivers to go around, and family members now live far away. My dad lives in Florida. I can't be there in 5 minutes. So what is the alternative to what we can do in that situation?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more in terms of the technology and just really just the beauty of it, because I could give you probably 10 different scenarios as to where, relative to my mother, if someone had not been around or had someone not come over, no telling. I mean, there's just, I think in a lot of regards she probably wouldn't be here. So I mean, and what people need to realize, what family members I believe really need to, if they don't want to talk about any other elephant in the room, they need to talk about this. It's not if your aging parent is going to fall. It's, and I don't mean to be a negative Nancy, but it's when. And they're going to fall. Their gait becomes differently. They can't, you don't know if they are having the small little TIAs, which then create neuropathies in the feet. They don't have the same gait. They can't walk the same. It's, and people don't realize that they'll say things like, I've heard family members say things like, well, I mean, they're slowing down a little bit. It's like, okay, that's a red flag. They're slowing down a little bit. Okay, they can't pick up their knees like they used to. That's going to be a problem, and they're going to fall. They can't turn like they. It's just aging. And but put something in place so that when something does happen, everyone can respond quickly. And I mean, for the cost of this type of technology in your loved one's home, you cannot beat it. You can't beat it. Like you said, it's never going to replace a caregiver, but this type of technology, I think, could be used in tandem with a caregiver because things happen right under your nose sometimes, right? I mean, if you've had kids, we've all seen toddlers and how things happen. I mean, people have swimming pools. They think that their toddler is on the floor playing right by them. Well, no, they've walked out and now they're in the pool. I mean, it's just life happens. So why not put another safety gap in place?
Yeah, and where also technology and specifically WellAware Care is going, but I think technology will keep going. Is I spoke about just one offering, right? A fall detection. But what's drawn me into doing podcasts, doing shows like this, what WellAware Care is, I would go to Council on Agings and try to do um, seminars, and nobody showed up to them because for what we talked about, nobody was really interested in senior care, and so the technology is going to what I'm excited about with this technology is that when you install this into your home, and my triggers, the triggers that I consider when you need to install WellAware Care is that if you're over 70 years old or if you've already had a fall, because the best indicator of future falls is past falls, right? So but what is interesting and different from the PERS is the PERS are just a button and then the cavalry comes, right? 911 comes and they figure out what the situation is. What technology is going to allow us to do, especially for family members that don't live right around the corner, but it's going to allow you to see what's going on in the home. I mean, it's not just falls, it's letting you know where seniors are spending their time. How often are they going into the bathroom? How often are they sleeping? How well are they sleeping? Are they getting up in the middle of the night? If they get up in the middle of the night, are they doing it 7 times or are they doing it once? Because that might be an indicator of a UTI. Are they falling? Have they started falling? So, like, what you get with WellAware Care and you'll get with technology in general is you're going to have a dashboard that you can log into, and you're going to see basically real-time analytics of what's going on in your parents' home. And even if you live next door, you're not always going to know exactly what's happening and what's going on. And so to be able to sit there and say, hey, listen, I 3 months ago, mom was not falling. And now she just had a recovered fall. So when they fall and they get back up, it still records that as a fall, even though it doesn't send out the text message. So you can then start seeing the decline in your parents. I know that's a difficult thing to say, but like you said, Kathy, it's not a matter of if, it's when. And then you can prevent future falls because you know what's going on in the home. Right now in senior care, we're very reactive. Families are reactive, home care is reactive. Kathy mentioned it earlier. It's Thursday. So tomorrow, today and tomorrow, we are going to get calls for families that had a loved one that fell, hurt themselves, went in the hospital, and they want to get home before the weekend because if they're in past 5 o'clock on Friday, they're staying there till Monday morning, right? So they are waiting until a crisis occurs to get the care that's needed versus being proactive about that. And part of the issue is because family members don't know what's going on in the home. It's not necessarily their fault. It's just, I didn't know this was going on. And if you have technology that allows you to see what's happening in the home, how often falls are actually occurring, how often somebody's using the bathroom, how well they're sleeping, are the medications working, do they need to be adjusted, all of those analytics that you're going to be able to see what's happening, you are going to be able to bring that to a doctor. You're going to be able to bring that to your care team, to your family members and say, hey, here's what's going on. We now know the problem. We know and can see and almost predict in the future what's going to happen. What are we going to do to prevent these crises versus waiting until the crisis has already occurred to then try to prevent future crisis? And what happens, and family members, and I think it's a point to bring up, is that family members are, I'm 38 years old. So if I sprain my ankle or if I break my ankle, I am fully expecting to be able to play basketball in a few more months or a few weeks if I sprain my ankle, right? I'm going to heal, I'm going to get better, and then I'm going to go back to normal. Well, when you're 85 years old, going back to normal to where you already are is not likely. You're likely going to have a decline in your baseline because you're just not going to be able to get back to where you were. But family members and adult children are in the mindset that I'm in describing and saying, well, if I get injured, I just get better, right? That's what happens. Well, when you're 70, 80, 90 years old, that's not what happens. And then all of a sudden your baseline has changed, and mom, who was independent walking around the block, is now no longer able to walk around the block, and they're having trouble going to and from the bathroom, and they don't get past that. That's their new baseline. So that's what we mean by saying your baseline has changed. It's declined, and your new baseline is worse than what it was before the fall. So with technology and bringing it back to technology, if you're able to prevent that fall because you're starting to see the mini falls occurring, they haven't been the major crisis where a hip gets broken or an ankle gets broken or a arm gets broken, you're able to say, oh my gosh, the volcano is starting to erupt. Let's put a plug in it before it explodes. And then you're going to be able to prevent your mom from having a change in baseline, and she's going to have a better quality of life because you were able to be proactive about the situation then rather than reactive about the situation. And that's what's got me so excited about technology and WellAware Care specifically, but technology in general, because now we're going to be able to improve seniors' lives and their longevity and their quality of life because we're able to see what's going on in the home and we can make adjustments in near real time.
Right.
Ryan, I just love your passion about this, and I love the combination of the technology and the care together. I think that's fantastic. As we come to the end of our show, I just want to broach one subject around that. People are listening, they're watching and saying, yes, yes, this is what we need. We need to take the first step. So if someone has the cash and they're going to go out of pocket, that's one thing. If somebody wants to come in through insurance, does there have to be some kind of diagnosis before a person can get care? I know you said for the technology, you have to be 70 or have fallen once, but what about for the whole combination of them together?
So everything that I'm describing is out of pocket right now. Private home care is out of pocket unless you have long-term care insurance, and the technology that I'm describing is out of pocket as well. And it doesn't mean that I mean, this is for anybody. If you're 65, you can have the technology. It's more of the triggers that I'm bringing up is more of like, hey, when would we think about getting WellAware Care? Well, if you're over 70 years old, you're likely going to have issues with falls in the future, unfortunately. So that's a good trigger point. And then if you've had falls in the past, that's obviously a big trigger point. But if somebody's 60 years old, they can get WellAware Care. But unfortunately, everything I'm describing is out of pocket. There's no insurance that's going to cover this unless you have long-term care insurance, which will cover assisted livings, nursing homes, and private home care. But that's a supplemental insurance. That's something that you go out and you purchase specifically, and so you will know if your loved ones generally have that. But Blue Cross Blue Shield or whatever the big one is in your neck of the woods, the medical health insurance does not cover any of this whatsoever. So that's something that's going to be out of pocket, which is why Kathy and I were talking about how care has just increased. The cost of care has increased so much.
Thank you so much for clarifying that for our audience. I think that really helps because people need to start, whatever age you are, start the plan now as soon as possible because it is going to be a commitment and you can't, pull a rabbit out of a hat, so to speak. So, Ryan, I would love to have you back. I feel like
Absolutely.
we're just scratching the surface with this conversation. And I'd love for our audience, when we have you back, to get engaged and ask questions. But this has been really powerful. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. It was great to chat about this, and hopefully, your listeners and your viewers, get some information out of this that they can utilize with their loved ones.
And I'm going to spotlight you. And if, of course, we have your banner, but for people who can't read it or they're listening on the radio, what's the best way to get in touch with you and who would you like to reach out to you?
So the best way to get in touch with me is probably my my website. It's if you type into Google Minute Women Home Care, 4 words, Minute Women Home Care, you'll see our website pop up. And there's is our contact information. Our phone number is 781-862-3300. Obviously for home care, I guess I shouldn't say obviously, but home care generally has a pretty defined small area of service. So it's about 15 miles around Lexington. So if you're in California, I can't help you out with home care, but WellAware Care can be drop shipped and is very easy to install. So if you have a loved one that's remote and outside of the Massachusetts area, we can definitely help you out with WellAware Care. And again, if you call my office at that number or shoot me an email at ryan@mwhomecare.com, I'm certainly happy to discuss those options with you and walk you through what the technology is all about.
Thank you very much. And we do have a comment. Hi, Brenda. Thank you so much for watching. Great info. Yes, absolutely great. Wonderful. All right. Thank you again, Ryan, for being here. And we look forward to having you back on this show or one of our other shows. We have 26
Yeah,
shows a
Ryan.
week.
Yeah, Ryan, thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, great information.
Awesome. It
Really
was a pleasure.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye. Kathy, I love that the fact that we're getting information to share with people. This is relevant, pertinent, valuable, important information, and maybe a wake up call for some people and maybe a call to action for some others. So thank you so much for bringing Ryan here today.
Oh no, it was my pleasure. And just in my day to day, knowing the objections that come from family members, cost being one of them. Like we've had to increase, like I said, we've had to increase the number of hours, and not all families can afford this, and I totally get it. And so I'm just thrilled that there is technology that is out there now that is affordable, that we can offer to these families, because so at least there's some kind of shepherd around, if you will, to watch over them, so that if when it does happen, there's not an inordinate amount of time has gone by. People will realize what has happened. And I just there are a lot of people that people sometimes people just don't want to be bothered with this stuff, meaning the new technology, and they want to rely on, well, we've got dad a necklace that he wears around his neck. And it's like, I can't tell you the times in my career with having this agency where um, they don't remember to charge it. They don't remember to wear it. And for heaven's sakes, if they do fall, they're in so much pain, typically, they don't remember to click that button. So what have you accomplished? And that's my response. It's like and then you throw on top of it, oh, they have early onset dementia. Okay, they're not going to remember to click the button. It's like, come on, people. And those are the kinds of, well, those are the kind, and that's the way that I have conversations with people. It's like, you're expecting way too much out of this necklace. Let's move on. Let's get current.
Yes,
So.
thank you, Kathy. Good point. We need to move on to our next show, which is starting
Okay.
very soon. Before we do that, I want to spotlight you. So on our banner, we have your information about your interior design business. So tell us about your home health care so that I can create a banner for that as well.
Yeah, so we've been in business since 2013, and we, like Ryan, offer hourly care, but our minimum is now 8 hours. But we also offer live-in care, which is a fantastic solution to not having to sell your property, downsize, perhaps having to give away your pets. It's a great option for aging in place. And so if you need any type of home care service, feel free to reach out to me. You can call me at 703-895-3798. I'd love to hear from you.
Thank you, Kathy. And we're going to move on to our next show. Do you want to just tee that up for folks who are anxiously waiting for what's trending?
Yeah, so we have our next guest is Hunter Ash, and she lives in Austin, Texas, and she is an artist, and she is very passionate about it, and I can't wait for us to be able to showcase her work.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you so much, Kathy. I will meet you in the other studio. And for our friends who are watching or listening, just stay wherever you are. We'll go do the moving and we'll be back shortly. So thanks, Kathy.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye. Thank you, everyone, for watching, for listening, for spreading the word. I have a couple of announcements I want to share. Let me just pull them up, my graphic. So, I came up with the idea 2 days ago to start a game show on our platform. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. The name of this show is Who's Listening Game Show. And so you might think to yourself, what is this about? I'm very passionate about teaching people how to listen at an elevated level. It is my mission. I feel like there's so much over talking, cross talking, interrupting. And with what's going on in the world, we need to be able to listen to each other without judging, without interrupting, without providing a solution, and without stealing the stage to tell our own story. There's so much frustration and resentment that gets built up when we're not listened to. And if you're in a relationship where that's going on all the time, you start to feel very small or maybe very angry, and you just start lashing out. And what I do is I teach people how to listen at an elevated level by taking this course called The Power of Listening. It's a 2.5-hour course. There's role plays that are included, and I was doing them live, and it's difficult to get people together at the same time that I'm available. So now anyone can take the course at their leisure. It's 2.5 hours, as I mentioned. You get certified. You actually get a certificate, plus your headshot goes up on my website, drjacalyn.com. And you also get featured as one of our team members at USA Global TV, and your picture goes over on our website there as well. So this game show is for people who have become certified as elevated listeners, and they're also a member of our elevated listening community. And if you're interested, you get to be on the game show. The game show is starting in July. It's going to be 15 weeks, and people will be eliminated. I'll be playing sound clips. For example, Sally sells seashells by the seashore on Sunday. And I might say, what was the 8th word? And you have to go back through your head. So little tricks and games and fun things to get people really honing in on their listening skills. What I also see in teaching listening skills, people are on their device, or they're in the middle of doing something and somebody barges in and is talking to the back of their head and thinks that they're actually going to get their attention that way. So I give you the tools and I teach you how to listen at an elevated level, and you can play this game show with us, which is going to be terrific. So your investment is 2.5 hours in the course, The Power of Listening, and it's a financial commitment of $257. And then to join our elevated listening community, where you actually get a video each month that includes a guided meditation. It also includes fitness tips, listening tips, and then some key pieces of education from our shows. So you can join the elevated listening community over at drjacalyn.com. You can also get the certificate course that you can be part of our team and be a team member at USA Global TV on drjacalyn.com. All right. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it. I've got to get over to the other studio for what's trending. So we'll be right back. Thanks again for watching. Bye.